I am the chairperson of the Strategic Planning Committee for the SOA, whatever that means. It doesn't get me anything further or anything else but fun and games. Anyway, we're happy to see you here tonight. What we wanted to do with this meeting is to go over what we did as an amenities survey. Now, for some of you that have been around a while, you may recognize that in, I think it was in 2013, there was a survey that was sent out to the members. There were results that came in from that. Based on that, we took it to the next step, which we contracted out with a consulting service to do a more in-depth review and survey for where we are with our current amenities and what we're looking at into the future. And the future is coming real fast on us, as all of you can probably see from all the building that's going on out here. And the amenities that we have at this particular point, most of which are being taxed at this stage. So we need to be looking at how we want to satisfy our needs for today and for the future. Okay. Catherine Hansford from the Hansford Group, which was one of the consulting groups, and then there was Fresh Tracks, which also is another consulting group, worked with Catherine's group in doing this particular survey and coming up with the report which we're going to go through, and Catherine is going to make that presentation. What I would ask of you as Catherine goes through it is please hold your questions. Okay? There'll be plenty of time at the end for questions. We figure it's probably about maybe around 40 minutes or thereabouts to go through what we're going to go through at this particular point. There's a lot of material that's here. They did a fabulous job on that particular survey. And based on the work that was done here, so that you're aware of it, is we just put out a request for bid to firms to come up with a master plan vision based on the results of the survey. So based on that, we'll take it to the next steps, and we're trying to move this thing forward as we go through this particular thing. We want to try to keep, since you're taking it into your dinner time at this stage, we want to try to keep this thing to maybe an hour and a half, and we'll see what kind of questions we have over here, and then take it from there. So with that, and so I'm not taking up more time, I'm going to introduce Catherine. Catherine, the show is yours.
Thank you, Don.
All right, well, I'm happy to be back here. It's very nice to have someone helping me out with the presentation. I'm going to walk you through the work that we did over the winter time. As Dawn mentioned, Catherine asked me with Consulting. Sean through Fresh Tracks and Communications also worked on this project, which is not here today. So at the time we gave this presentation in March, we wanted to show where the community was in planning and then just planning. And so we were at phase 1. We were commissioned to do this study. We put together a report with our methodologies, our findings, and recommendations. And so that's why there's a big circle around the report, because that's the stage we're at in March.
Excuse me,
Catherine, can you know your
Okay, so I think you've moved into phase 2, which is what you're doing with the report and the plan with the strategic planning committee. And then that will move forward into taking that to the board and ultimately to the members with what you're going to do, the next steps. But as far as our work was concerned, it went through phase 1. Okay?
It's going to take a while to load, Captain.
From what I've heard, it sounds like you're successfully making that next step into phase 2. Okay, so this shows the steps that we took for the study. It consists of 3 things. One was the data analysis, looking at the demographics of Somerset, your current use of the amenities, and the growth rate, what you might expect to see in terms of usage by build-out of the community. The second was market research, looking at comparable communities to look for lessons learned from other communities on things like how they use their amenities, how they operate them, what their planning processes are, if they have any inspirational ideas that we could take from those comparable communities and apply them to Somerset. And the third thing we looked at was impacting trends, and that was based on national recreation trends, your own surveys that you've done, City of Reno plans, and some aquatic and tennis trends in particular. Somerset today. This was just to have a look at your historical growth in Somerset and where things seem to be going. So you can see in the early 2000s there, building was very rapid in the first few years. And then we hit the 2006-2007 Great Recession. And you can see building slowed down. It was very little building here for a couple of years. And back in 2012, building started to pick up. And as Don mentioned, you only need to look around and see that it's really going again. This is from the 2010 census, Somersett Demographics, which does include Delaware. Interesting to note that it's very highly occupied community. 88% of homes at that time were occupied. And as I mentioned, we went through that recession, and I think things probably did change a little during that time period, but I would imagine we're probably closer back to what you see here in the 2010 census. Of the occupied homes, 85% of them are by owners and 15% by renters. And those units that are vacant, 48% of them are used seasonally. So a lot of occupation, a lot of usage of the units here. And a lot of homes, about 2/3 of the homes have families. And if you look at the age of the demographics, a fairly even balance. Persons under 20-21%, and then 35% of the population. Okay, looking at the projection for the community through build-out, we did a population projection, and this slide shows some of those assumptions. The 2010 census had an average of 2.37 persons per unit. When we split that out between Sierra Canyon and Somerset was at 2.52, and Sierra Canyon had an average of 1.7 persons per unit. And we looked then at the number of members that were paying dues, and used that information to come up with a range of persons at any one time who might be coming out here and using the amenities. And so we did it as a range, because we don't have that perfect crystal ball. We want to get an idea of a range of usage. So for the Somerset area, the range was 2.85 persons to 3.2 persons per unit. Okay, your amenities today, I'm not going to spend much time on this. You have your club at Town Center, that's the majority of your amenities. Your kids' corner, tennis courts, pools, weights, aerobics, all kinds of different types of physical exercise opportunities, as well as rooms for other kinds of recreation, card games, etc. There's the 9-hole golf course and 27 miles of hiking and biking. The golf course is separate. It is not included as an amenity for purposes of this study. However, we do talk about it somewhat in relationship to other amenities. This table shows the number of fitness class offerings here at the club, and you can see it's gone up between 2009 and 2014. So what's interesting is you're seeing the usage of this facility growing. The number of persons per class has stayed fairly even, so your total number of participants has increased over time. And this graph shows which activities have increased. And I think what is of note here is that the yoga and aerobic fitness really increased fairly dramatically. The tennis and the water fitness have not. But as we'll talk about more in the presentation, that's not necessarily because people don't want to use those facilities. It might be that they're just not organized in a fashion that they would come out and they would use them more if they were perhaps organized differently. And looking to perhaps what changes you might want to see. We had a look at your 2013 survey. You have really, really good response rates, so we felt very, very fortunate to have this data. And clearly people said they don't want to see elimination of any existing amenities. And in addition to that, about 60% of people said that they would be willing to increase their assessments to have additional facilities, amenities. Of note, top 4 reasons why people buy in Somersett: the environment, the amenities, lifestyle, homes and price, and those things are all linked together. Let's not do that one. And the top amenity improvements, the things that we want to see improve the most, with aquatics center, cardio, and the trail system. This is another way of looking at historical amenity visitation. Again, you can see Canyon 9 visits and pool visits. You're not seeing a big change there, but the clubhouse visits have really increased. Okay, in this table, what we wanted to do was to have a look at where you are now compared with where we anticipate you to be at build out of the community. And this is in total number of units. And the total number of units that are using amenities now. For Somersett, the assumption in the model was that all of the units that have been built, all of that population might be using it, plus 1/3 of the vacant lots, because people who own property can still come use the amenities even if they don't have their home built yet. And then for Sierra Canyon, the assumption was that all of those lots with buildings on those folks could also use said amenities. So the percentage change in people or persons at one time coming and using amenities, we can see Somersett, we're looking at about a 50% increase, and Sierra Canyon about a 30% increase. And those numbers were based off of January 2015. So in terms of usage for the facilities here at Town Centre, the clubhouse and the pool, the projection was that usage might increase between 24 and 37% from now to build out. Okay, so looking at some of the trends here, we talked about the usage of the club. It's increased sharply, seen it in primarily yoga and fitness. We know that the cardio room is also being used a lot more. We didn't have good data to support that, but we did talk to staff and members, and we heard that there are certain times of the day when it's very busy in that room. We talked about the pool use has been fairly level, but there's been more visits by members and less by guests. So the club and the pool visits to increase about 24 to 37%, I think I had on my last slide, in the next 5 years, and Canyon 9 from 27 to 45%. Okay, so for Canyon 9, that percentage increase is probably not anything to be alarmed about. It's not close to capacity. You could manage the increase. If you needed to, you could implement additional measures like reservations. You could close it to the public. You could take other measures to manage the Canyon 9. But there is a need for a future pool expansion, and depending on what the members want, potentially to have a covered area for the pool. there is a need for future fitness space, whether that be cardio and aerobic or strength. And we distinguish that differently in the report between the cardio and aerobic would be things like some jazzercise, and then strength is more the weights room. So the current space will not accommodate this growth of user numbers, even with some programming changes. But programming changes now could lengthen the time frame that's needed to make those expansions or changes in uses of space. And now I'm going to move into what we learned from the comparison communities. We looked at 4 comparison communities. 2 of them are more sort of resort-oriented, 2 of them are more places where more stable year-round residents. The first one is Tahoe Donner. Tahoe Donner is a really excellent example, and we have provided a lot of examples of their materials to staff as part of this project and report. So on the operations and long-range planning side, they have a very strong operations staff. Their HOA, they're all HOA employees. None of their staff is contracted out. They have a lot of long-range planning efforts. They collect a lot of data on their users, and they do that through their key card system. They have one main committee, and then they form subcommittees as needed for certain projects. So for example, they're undergoing an expansion of their major clubhouse facility right now. They do have a subcommittee working on that project. They have a very extensive capital budget planning process, and they post that online. They do little web videos that they post online explaining their budget, what they're spending assessments and dues on. They really work hard to just have regular and smaller increases in their assessments. They have found from experience it's very hard to build homeowner support for one-time special assessment fees. They have a very, very low delinquency rate, which they attribute largely to having with their management system, with their employees and their key card system. They always have 2 staff members at every point of entry to their amenities. And they look everyone up in the system, make sure everybody's paid up with their dues. One piece of advice they said was, if you're looking at expansions, to try and keep all of your activities in the same place and expand on your current site so that you don't then have to engage with more staffing at different sites. Let's see, another thing that they employ is wait lists for machines. They have a very strict system of little whiteboards by each of their pieces of equipment, and they don't allow people to stay on a piece of equipment for more than 30 minutes. When you come to use the fitness center, they will have someone run back and have a look at the usage in the room and give you an idea of how long you might be waiting if there is a wait, which machines are being used, which ones you can expect to use when you come in. They also have a separate tennis club, so they have their HOA committee, but then they also have a tennis club that's a little bit separate with their own board of directors. They have 11 courts, and an interesting thing about that is that it really creates its own social cluster by having them in a separate area with a separate board. Okay, another community we looked at, we wanted to have another one in Nevada, so we have Arrow Creek. They also found that having a key card system is really critical to managing their membership and their fees and delinquency rates. They don't have an issue with the traffic and their pools and fitness room. They have a large area that they can expand. They have a large area planned, I should say, around their main amenity building that they can expand on. They also with the golf course is absolutely critical to their property values. And they have, they do contract out certain services, like accounting services and management services, but then they keep their operations employees are HOA employees. Their only other comment was really that they like to keep things as simple as possible with their fee structure. Here's another community, it's called Whitney Oaks, it's down in Rockland. This was quite, we wanted to have another community that also had an age-restricted section. And Whitney Oaks does, they also have the Delaware section in their community. And the key thing about Whitney Oaks, it's very, very different from the others in terms of how they manage their amenities. They keep them very much more segregated into their communities. So they have gated communities, and they'll have a pool in that gated community. It's not centralized like the other ones are. But what they really focus on is their open space management plan and linking the community together through their open space plan. They have goats that they use for grazing, and then they also have a very strong linkage with the city of Rockland, and they have 3 parks on the outside of Whitney Oaks, so people can go out and use those city amenities rather than having them inside the community. And their only other comment, I think, was that they do have several subcommittees, and then they meet quarterly to make sure that they're all coordinating. Sun River is up in Oregon. This is another large community. It's a little bit more like Tahoe Donner, with a bit more of a resort aspect to it. But their big thing is that they really wanted an awesome aquatic facility. So they went all out for that, and they did a one-time special assessment for that, and it's been very, very successful for them. They have areas now where only members can go. They have areas where the public can go to. It is owned and operated by the HOA. They do have some private businesses in there that offer services to members and can also help to generate revenues for the HOA. They do annual surveys, and they recommended that for getting continual good feedback from their members. And then the third piece we looked at in the report was the national trends and some local influencing trends. The first one was that the importance of the amenities show in the property values. And we saw that in your survey. People said that they live here for the environment, the lifestyle, the amenities, and that shows in the property values. So it's very important to have well thought out amenity packages. It keeps a very attractive community. The linkage between lifestyle and public health, I think that's something that's really grown and really come to the forefront recently. And so communities that have amenities and that opportunity for recreating and promoting people's health is really appealing. So the top preferences, so swimming, cardio fitness, biking and trails, which also matches what you had in your survey for Somersett. Some aquatic trends, to move away from the lap pool type of swimming to a multi-activity experience. And so the really good example of that is what they call the shark up in Sun River, where they have a lazy river and they have floating logs and things that kids can play on. And then they also have just a big pool area for fun and another pool area for people who want to do their lap swimming. So really making it a multi-use experience, and I would say intergenerational experience as well. To have multiple entry points, that means to get into the water, multiple entry points, not to get into the facility. And lots of different activities, like I said. To make it a place to visit rather than just a place to swim, to make it a place that's social. If you want to go, maybe have a barbecue after you swim, meet with people, meet with neighbors, etc. There's a trend to promotion of well-being and to have other leisure offerings around the pool area. So whether that be deck space, or a cafe, cabanas, hot dogs, etc. And tennis trends, I mentioned earlier on that maybe your growth in the use of the tennis center, which has not really had much growth, might not be so much to do with number of people as it is with what we see here. What influences you more to play tennis this year than last year? This is a survey that we found. And the top reason was they found someone to play with. So maybe having more of a tennis center where people can come and socialize and do more than perhaps just play tennis, or perhaps they find someone to play tennis with. But maybe it's a programming as well as use of the space that you might see a lot more people playing tennis if you were to make a few changes. And trails and open space trends. I think another thing that came out of this report was the importance in Somerset of your trails and your open spaces, and how that really needs to get incorporated into your strategic planning, to really think about it as an amenity. Trails and open spaces connect communities, they encourage stewardship of your surrounding landscapes. We're seeing more and more how trails are being very carefully thought out. You're seeing trail and open space master plans much more frequently now. There's an idea that everyone should be able to access a trail within a 5-minute walk from their door. And that they preserve integrity of the community and speak to a place people want to call their home. And local influences. Reno has an open space and greenways plan, and they have called out P5 Peak as being a priority area for them. We mentioned in the report that pools are an amenity deficit in Reno. So there's not a lot of good alternatives for people to go and use a pool. So to have a really good multi-functioning type of pool here would be very, very attractive. Sierra Vista Park, that's the old Northgate Golf Course, which is adjacent to Somerset. City of Reno is looking for funding to make enhancements and improvements to that park. And there might be good opportunities there for giving an input to getting amenities there that perhaps you don't want to have on your own site, but you could go there and use easily. And I'm thinking of things like archery and bike courses and pub tracks and things like that. And then we were told to go big in our ideas, so we also threw out the suggestion that there are other great amenities, natural amenities around you, like the Truckee River, that perhaps you could secure some property and go and enjoy that sort of off-site property for Somerset. So we did make recommendations in the report, and those recommendations are based on 5 key concepts. And of course, we've also gone off your primary objective. It's great to be on. The first concept is that you want clustered user groups to increase the interaction among members with similar amenities preferences. And in doing so, to maximize the use of the space and to minimize operations costs. To keep a recreation campus here at the current clubhouse and other properties surrounding it. To build on the strengths of the amenities that you currently have in place. To expand that definition of amenities to include the environment and the open space and trails around you between the different housing areas. And to enhance the operational and organizational excellence to ensure long-term success of SOA in delivering amenities. And we also grouped it. We have short-term and some long-term, and we looked at planning, operations, and communications. So with planning, we recommended that the SOA board and the strategic planning committee create an amenities action plan with short and long-term goals. So using this report as a starting point to look for paths forward, what your next steps would be. And I think that's already going. To be looking for new revenue generating avenues or to strengthen your existing ones. To look for ways perhaps for working with the golf course, use property at the golf course, weddings and such type of events. To form a long-range amenities planning committee. It could be the strategic planning committee, but to have one body that's really looking forward in the next 20 years or so. Also, that there be a more robust strategic planning effort. So by that we mean you have several different committees currently to ensure that those different committees are working together and sending a unified message to the members. And also to be more engaged with the City of Reno on an ongoing and regular basis. We talked about Sierra Vista Park next door. If you had a liaison who was regularly attending City of Reno meetings and ensuring you have a voice and a say in the types of things that you would like to see, that also enhance your amenities. Okay, also in the short term, to acquire the property opposite the City of Reno Pocket Park at the town center. The purpose of that would be to link the park with the town center. Some ideas that you could use that property for was to move the Canyon 9 facilities there. You could have winter usage, you could start snowshoe trails from there, and you could have snowshoe rentals. You could expand your summer activities to include things like Segway rentals. So looking for an opportunity there to also to generate more SOA revenue. To engage the land use planner for a new amenities facilities layout. Sounds like you're already working on a master plan. This is part of that process. So to get some conceptual renderings, space layout for how you might use, if you have new property or you're going to look at different layouts. Also to hire an aquatic design consultant to really look at what kinds of features you might want to have here, layout, and get you some different cost estimates of different designs so you can make some really good and informed decisions. On the communications and engagement side, to conduct an amenities use survey that's very specific to this clubhouse, to the pool center, the current tennis area, and the kids programs, to really get a feel for what specific changes people are looking for. And to communicate and engage membership more in planning efforts, get more feedback from members, and to strengthen the communication tools. This is really Shauna's piece of the work, but what she's really was stating in the report was to be more friendly with your website, to be more reflective of your membership values, to showcase your trails, put maps up there, trail maps, amenity maps, to expand your profile of the board and committee members, make it more prestigious to be serving on the committees. And these are still the short term. Operations recommendations was to implement a key card system with amenity facilities. And there was some discussion, and we presented this in March as to how you would do that exactly. But there are companies you can talk to and you can think about if you want to have just your one point of entry or other points of entry, how you might manage that type of a system. But what we learned from the other communities was that in using the key card system, they could really track their usage of their facilities better with not only how many people, but time of use of the day. And it really helps with consultants and planners in trying to help you to envision what you want. So also to enhance security and member management as well. To hire a facilities/operations manager. That was a lesson learned from Arrow Creek, where they have a manager who directly reports to the to the Arrow Creek HOA board, And then they keep a lot of them more accounting type of tasks with a separate company. But by having someone who's employed directly by the HOA, that person is very, very accountable to the members. To employ some cardio machine spacing, it looks very, very crowded in that room with the machines. So some spacing and implementing some waitlisting. To add aerobic fitness classes into the gym space. There's a lot of classes with, I keep saying Zumba and jazzercise, but I know with those types of classes, you really don't need much in terms of equipment. So you have that wonderful gym. You know, you can have an instructor up on the stage and your class down below following. They don't need to use your current space that you have down here. So we could free up some space. And also to reorganize the town center staffing, to focus more on your user needs here. And one of the suggestions was to have 2 people here at the front. So you've always got somebody at the front desk and another person checking the room, seeing how much usage there is of equipment, if there's going to be a wait time, those kinds of things. Okay. So into the long-term planning, we did suggest that you create an open space and trails plan. Talked about the fact that Somersett residents have chosen this area to live in, particularly because they love that open space and the trail opportunities. To consider private venture to provide certain recreation needs. The idea there being that if there were certain wants or desires of the community that you could not readily provide with this space, there is commercial space across the way. Perhaps either you could rent out that space for usage, or you could actually have another group provide the service. And then the wild and crazy idea was that you, if you were interested in having property somewhere else, like by the river, you know, to go and have a nice barbecue area by the river or something, that you could consider the potential for actually having amenities off-site as well as on-site. Tahoe Donner has that. Sun River is adjacent, not quite off-site really, but other communities do that. Okay, here's an idea for the operations. We talked about keeping clusters of activities together, and if you wanted to free up some space here and move something to either another building or a new building, one that you might want to move or could move is the kids program. You could move that to a new location next to the clubhouse. Perhaps you could use some of the property that's closer to the roundabout in that little area. There was some concern there with security, and you'd have to get some kind of a system figured out, but it's a group, it's a cluster of activity you could move. And if you did that, you could then use that freed up space for more cardio room or more strength room. To move the tennis facilities and expand the program, perhaps do the club idea like they do at Tahoe Donner. So you could, that's another one, you could move perhaps either over a roundabout area or that's what he's saying about that land. But again, it's another cluster that you can move. And then to expand the aquatic center using the vacated tennis area. And in doing that, you could then have more of a multi-use type of aquatic facility. Was that it? Oh, that was really abrupt. I'm sorry. I thought I had something else. Okay. Right. Well, 40 minutes it was, huh?
Thank you very much. There's a lot of work that went into this, a lot of stuff in between all these lines that you could well expect. Can you be better now?
Yes.
Wasn't it a commercial? Can you hear me now? Okay. A lot of the things, or not, I shouldn't say a lot, a number of the things that Catherine went over several of them have been implemented already. There's work going on in assessment, prioritizing certain other things that are in this particular report as to, you know, what is really viable. A couple of the things that hinge into this are, you know, trying to create interest groups for different kinds of amenities, which would enhance the experiences that are in there. When Catherine talked about the board of directors and the strategic planning and long-range planning, that has been developed and put together at this particular point. The interaction between the various committees, right now we have three, if you want to call it, operating committees: the finance committee, communication committee, and the strategic planning committee. We have set up a system where the chairpersons of each of those committees meet on a routine basis at least once a month to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes and coordinating our efforts and things of this nature. So there are a lot of things that are there. And as I said in the opening, what we are in the process of doing right now, what's out for review, is a request for proposal to take into account some of these items that are in here to do basically conceptual master plan. Because as we look at a number of these things, you talk about the swimming area, or the aquatics, you talk about the tennis, you talk about the trails, you talk about all the other issues that are there, the kids programs and things of this nature. It's like a dominoes effect. You can't just address one, because one will impact on another. So what we're looking at is to come up with some conceptual plan that we can then begin to evaluate to see what direction that we really need to go in. And from that particular jumping point would be then looking at what is it going to cost to do this. At this particular point, I'll be very honest with you, we don't have an idea, because we don't have something to, in a semi-firm sense, to look at, so you can begin to develop what some of these costs might be and how we're going to approach them. One thing for sure that we know when we talk about the building and some of the projections that were there, since this report, and since Catherine did this, we were looking at build out of Somersett going out to 2020. Well, I think if you look around what's going on right now, I would not be at all surprised to see the build out of available lots at this particular point to be somewhere closer to 2017, maybe 2018. So things are moving a lot faster that are taxing our systems and taxing our amenities and taxing our operations than we would like to see. It's easier, would always be easier to try to be ahead of it than to try to catch up from behind, because when you try to catch up from behind, that's when it gets very, very costly. So with that, I will entertain questions from you on anything that we've discussed here, and if you've got some ideas, or we don't have a license on all this stuff that's going on. This is not magic, and it's not rocket science, but we're trying to do what we can do based on what we hear from members and the other members, and we'd like to hear from you even further. So if there are any questions to address to Catherine or to me or to Tony, chairman of the board here, we'd certainly be happy to try and confuse you more. Silence.
I just had a question regarding the comment that 60% of the respondents would agree to a assessment increase. Was there any indication what tolerance level they would have for an increase, and what amenities would be suitable for an increase?
No, there wasn't in that survey. It wasn't. I think, what Shauna's suggestions there in communications was more surveys. And I think, as you narrow in, you do your master plan, you start narrowing in on some things that you think are more feasible and desirable, and then really getting that community support and input and through those surveys or meetings like this is really going to be critical. So that's
excuse me. Yeah, I noticed most of the emphasis was on non-Sierra Canyon type amenities, very little that would affect Sierra Canyon as a trail system. Is there a separate report that's a similar thing that Sierra Canyon is going through?
Not to my knowledge. There have been, Tony, you could probably address.
Just a couple points. I mean, we actually talked to Sierra Canyon and asked if they wanted to be involved with this. At that time, they didn't. This does focus primarily on the Somersett part, except for a couple of comments that he noted on Canyon 9 and trails. You know, we have said previously, we're open to doing things jointly with Sierra Canyon. We're not going to push stuff on Sierra Canyon that they don't want to do. So, for example, we're talking to them right now regarding the dog park and all that kind of stuff. No, they're totally independent when it comes to them talking about what they want to do with their amenities and whether they want to join, you know, other amenities with us other than the general common areas like Canyon 9 and so forth.
So most of your ideas would be funded out of the expansion and having more people in?
That-
Or something else?
That in part, yeah, I mean, that gets in, ties in while the committees are meeting together. Because obviously it ties in with the finance committee and, you know, what we're looking at, the added income. I mean, you stop and look at it, you look at the SOA is operating a major business here. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. I said millions. Did you mishear me?
I'm shocked at that, frankly.
Shocked at what?
The billions.
I didn't say millions.
Yes, it is.
Let's take a vote. What did I say?
Okay, millions.
6 days. 6 days.
I was just going to make a comment what I like about the presentation is, you know, some of these changes, you know, even in the short term are relatively inexpensive, like the key cards to start getting a better idea as to the amenities being used. You know, the ones that may need more capital would be the longer term, you know, moving the pool, moving tennis courts, and that may be, you know, years down the road. But what I like seeing is that there's some short-term goals, you know, simple things like moving the Canyon 9 golf hut off-site and create some space and some efficiency. So I think that's something we all keep in mind is that it's not that we're going to spend $1 billion next year to build, you know, state-of-the-art aquatic center. In 20 years, we may be applying for that. I said billion.
He said
So, yeah, I really like how you have short-term and long-range, you know, type planning included.
One of the things that struck me about the survey was the fact that many of the people who live in Somerset, not Sierra Canyon, are older, retired folks like me. And it seems that we have more in common with the people who live in Del Webb, Sierra Canyon, than we do with the people who come here.
That demographic is changing, and it's changing rapidly. We looked at, for example, the average number
It
of,
was 44% in your survey.
yeah,
That was from the census, 2010 census.
2010 census.
Okay, so what do you think it is today? 'Cause I mean, 2010 was a long time ago.
I know. I got
think we
older.
need-
That's like.
You see, older folks have different needs from younger folks.
Well, I'm gonna say yes and no, okay? It depends on, a lot of times, I'm an older folk. My state of mind is not being an older folk. I'm not gonna sit there and, I get out and do things, okay? And I'm sure you do also. People get out there and do things. But I think what we see in the sense is the demographics is changing. We're getting younger families coming in. And I think part of that is where we started swinging out of this recession thing, and you know, the home prices became a little bit more affordable for some other people. Whether or not they had other discretionary income remains to be seen. But you're seeing more larger households, so to speak. When I say larger households, you talk about families with 2 or 3 children, much more so than what. If you look at the original thing, and I wasn't around for the original thing here in Somerset, it was, you know, it was designed for perhaps at that particular point in time for an older community. Not necessarily the older community like you would say with Del Webb. How much they married together in that particular thing, I don't know. I really don't know. It's anybody's guess. But I do know that the demographics are switching around.
Well, I can tell you the houses built in our neighborhood were occupied by people who are retired.
Well, I think, Tony, you should speak to, there are certain things Sierra Canyon and their board.
Well, the one thing though, one thing I was going to point out though, and this is not with regard to Catherine's study, but you know, there was presentations and some materials available. What I was saying, there were some presentations and materials available at the time about the results of the 2013 survey. And if you go back and take a look at those, one of the things that surprised a lot of people that saw it, including myself, there were certain questions that were questions on attitudes and values, or, you know, why did you come here, those kinds of questions. One of the things the committee did was break out responses by where you live, whether you were in Somersett or Sierra Canyon. And the thing that was surprising is a lot of those answers were almost identical in terms of the percentages of people that responded which way from Somersett or Sierra Canyon. There was not a big, huge difference that, you know, people think differently between the two communities. I know that's not what everybody hears sometimes, but when we got the benefit of having a broader look, because we had several hundred people that responded, a lot of the profile, if you will, if you look at the bar graphs that they did that showed total responses, Sierra Canyon responses, Somersett responses, you know, that was part of their breakdown of demographics, it showed a surprising similarity between what people were thinking in Sierra Canyon, or at least how they responded to the survey versus how people in the other part of Somersett responded to the survey.
Thanks, Tony. Any other questions? Right?
Just a comment. I'm a resident of Sierra Canyon, but I also serve on committees here in the SOA as well as committees in Sierra Canyon. So Sierra Canyon is going through some of the same issues or studies. In fact, they've commissioned a study for expansion of their clubhouse, probably looking in the $500,000 range. Cost. The board hasn't approved that, nor has it been factored into any of the assessments, but they are looking at some of the same things. There actually have been benches put on the trails throughout Sierra Canyon, so as people hike, they want to rest, they can rest. More, I'm going to call them the dog stations, put it in place. So there's a lot of activity occurring in Sierra Canyon that are very similar to what's occurring here. So they're not resting, let's say. They're also taking action. I guess I had a general question with regards to the study. In terms of the assessments of all these different communities, the 4 different communities that you identified, I was just wondering what the assessment levels were that residents are contributing to in terms of...
We did collect that data. We didn't include it.
So it's somewhere in the
Yeah.
appendix that represent that.
Yeah, we didn't feel like that was really the focus. We didn't want to make that a focus. We wanted to think big and have, you know, ideas. And we do have the information, and I'm happy to pass it along. But we felt that we were really more commissioned to look at bigger picture ideas.
I'm not so interested in the percentage that I would give to the different levels of activity.
Right. I would recommend like going on a couple. Well, either I can send the materials to you. I'm happy to do that, or tell you when to find it. But it's easy to get.
You also made a comment that because a lot of the amenities expansion perhaps could be deferred for a period of time with more operational efficiency or program changes. Is that deferral period 1 to 2 years? Is it 2 to 5 years or longer?
Well, I guess it depends on the pressures that you're seeing here.
Ray, I think one of the target areas that we looked at from the strategic planning purpose, and I'm not sure whether it was the board that looked at it also, but we were looking at, a target to get to a particular point of having satisfaction by 2020. So what we're looking at here is, say, the last 5 years. My only concern at this particular point is that the world out there is moving faster than we are at this stage. How much faster we can move in this direction? I don't know. But I think we're looking at the third phase of assessment right now with the so-called master plan concept. Once we get there, then that's going to give us a better sense of how long, which ones, what do we prioritize, how do we go about doing it. It's not a rush, but it's something. We work this balance. We know, for example, at this particular point, not only just by looking at it, but intuitively, you look at the what's called the aquatics, the swimming pool. Okay, swimming pool's taxed. It's really taxed at this particular point. Okay. Does that mean we're going to do something immediately with the swimming pool? I don't think we're in a position to do that, but we recognize that we need to do something. Because as more people come in, that is going to get exacerbated. And people are going to get upset.
Yeah, on the swimming pool, you could easily do something. You could put in solar hot water heat for the pool, and you could extend the season by at least a couple of months. And that would actually provide more swimming for more people over a longer period of time. Plus the fact I swim every morning, and it's not that full. At 7 in the morning, there's not that many people in there.
People are still sleeping.
You said I was like you when I exercise. Do you get up early in the morning and exercise?
I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning.
So am I.
At 5 o'clock every morning.
But I swim in the morning to avoid the sun. That's the biggest problem with swimming pool, is the sun is, terrible. It's a hazard to the children, it's a hazard to the adults.
And it's probably a problem with tennis as well, because you're playing tennis off the blues.
It gets a little scorching out there. I know, but yeah, and to answer your question, we looked at enclosure, but we kind of stepped back from that, just as looking at just a single thing as an enclosure, because you don't want to go and spend. As a matter of fact, one of the things we did with the enclosure thing, I think one of the assessments was estimates was something like about $350,000.
I would spend $50,000 to put in solar hot water heat, not cover it.
Keep going.
Keep it going. You could swim in March, you could swim until November.
But you see, the thing here is what we want to make certain we don't get into doing is what I call the Band-Aid approach. The Band-Aid approach in the long run is start doing a little bit here, a little piece here, a little piece here, and then all of a sudden you start sharing up the one little piece that you did before, and you go back and forth. I've been through this before. I can tell you, it doesn't really work well. And I hear what you're saying, and it is.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it's a very practical suggestion.
Well, whatever. Any other questions?
Can you relate the size of the major amenity facilities that we currently have with which ones are overused, which ones are underused? You sort of implied a little bit in the presentation, but perhaps you can just summarize that. You said the cardio room was tight, or at least implied that.
Yeah, the cardio room is, well, you said the cardio room is tight, okay, but it depends on when you look at it. I can take you into the cardio room at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and you say, well, there's hardly anybody in here.
I understand.
Well, I don't know about now. Now we get into another kind of peak time, okay? But it's early morning is a peak time. After business is a peak time in there. Okay, so you don't build a cardio room or you don't build an exercise facility to maximize the thing for the total population. You manage that
Okay, I understand.
by saying, okay, there are limitations in certain times, so, you know, good idea. Yeah, and we try to do that. But, you know, so it's, you know, I live here and I want to come in when I want to come in, not when anybody else is telling me to come in. And that's a difficult thing to deal with.
I understand, but these are some of the things that,
These are things we're looking at.
okay, I just want to make sure.
There's some short-term recommendations was programming and use of space and trying to work on that in the short term, recognizing that in the long term, you will need to start moving things around and build conditions. And at that point, you need somebody who's expert in that, and not being sure with a big picture type, helping you with the beginning phases, but get the expert.
Could you comment also about the swimming facilities in terms of the capacity?
The swimming facility is pushing its limits.
Okay.
It's really pushing its limits at this point. It's not only the physical pool itself, okay? I mean, you take, like, as an example, if you go to the lap pool, okay, there's limitations on the use of the lap pool, whether it's adolescents or adults, and the times that are there, and things of that nature. You know, you look at, is it adequate to serve the needs of the community right now? Okay. You look at other aspects that are associated with the pool areas. You don't have enough space for the people that come.
It's also not pleasant because it's all out in this blazing sun. You
But
need to put
Well-
more, you need to do something so that it's a
We don't
pleasant
want
area.
to, oh,
You don't want people to come.
just like we don't want him to burn up over there. That's why he comes out at, so, that's a problem.
It is, because what's happening is when people do come, they're all huddled in one little area underneath the little, whatever you have.
Makes it a nice intimate feeling, doesn't it?
And that's part of it too, that I hope comes out in the report, is to start having processes where you can find out what do people want, you know, and create this vision for what you want from an aquatic center. And if you want it to be much bigger, you have multiple points of entry, then you're probably gonna have to move the tennis courts or move the candy line and get that input from people, recognizing
But
it's
if you move, if you're suggesting that you put another pool area where the tennis courts are, am I understanding that?
It just, no, not necessarily, I'm just giving a bigger picture. If you want to have like a multi-use type facility with a laser and everything, you might need to expand into that area. But it depends on what you want.
Right. That's where I was talking about the domino effect.
Yeah.
Looking at what's needed.
Yeah, we purchased the land adjacent to the retail buildings for the specific purpose of amenity expansions, right?
Correct.
And now that we have that, I don't know, I think we bought it after your study, correct?
You would
Well,
actually, right?
But anyway, my question is, now that we have that, is strategic planning looking at using that as a priority in the short term, or are we just gonna wait for some big master plan for everything? I think that would be a perfect place to build an indoor pool myself. But we have that land, I guess, the question, are you specifically looking at that as a priority for your planning?
We're looking at that as an inclusion for all of this area, so when we look at the master plan, part of the master plan is including that. To look at, okay, if something, just give you an example, and not that this is, you know, this is going to, but just throw it out. Catherine mentioned, I'll say, okay, so if we need to expand the swimming area, one of the logical places is controlling, maybe moving it out here, move the tennis courts and move a tennis facility over there. I don't know, that's a possibility. Is it a possibility to put something else there? Is it a possibility to put another building there and take care of the kids and the youth programs? That's a possibility in opening up space other way. But there are a number of things that we need to look at. And to answer your basic question, the answer to the question is yes, all of these things are being looked at and included.
Okay. I guess my concern is, we did this study, it was completed in November. We're now hearing the presentation about it, and now I'm hearing about hiring another company to come in and do some big master planning for the whole thing. Well, that's another year or so. Gee, can't we just move forward with what the people, I think aquatics has always come up on the top of the list.
It always has.
Yeah.
It always has.
So why not kind of move forward with that aspect of it while you do this big long-range 20-year
I
plan.
hear you, and I'd love to be able to say, yes, we could do that. Okay, but I think at this particular point is going out, the monies that are gonna be associated with getting these things done, is need to look at it from a broader picture to say, okay, we need to accommodate that, and yes, that's probably the highest priority is the aquatics. I think everybody agrees with that. Okay? Because one of the things that came out glaringly in the original report is why can't we have indoor swimming?
Yeah.
Have year round, and we'd love to have year round.
They have it at Sierra Canyon, we can't go there.
Well, you could go there if you bought a piece of property there.
Well, why should we do that?
I don't know.
That's one other thing. Okay, 44% of the people here are over 55. They also have, I'm theorizing here, but I also think they have more money than the younger people that are living here. I think that's a reasonably true statement. It may not be true across the board. Okay, so why not
Speak for
ignore
yourself.
the 44% here and address more kids' issues? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, we don't have to live here, but, we want to get here. But I don't see why, 44% of people, and I also don't believe it's dwindling that fast. And the younger people are moving in that fast. All it's gonna take, let's see, we're what, 7 years off into the recession? All it's gonna take is one more recession and we'll see who's left here.
The last man standing. Okay. I think that pretty much concludes where we're at at this particular point. You'll get